So good morning, or afternoon. I'm sorry. So good afternoon. It's a church thing. If you're here, it's got to be morning, right? However, this is queer church, right? So it ain't got to be the morning.
You woke up.
That's right. Some people just woke up. Speaking of, one of the people who said they just woke up is not even here yet. So, see, that's cool. So welcome to Queer Church. Those of you, as we said this weekend, if you were here yesterday, if you're here today, then you're probably queer. So, and no joking, because you know what the definition of queer is? People who like to change the norm. People who like to be different. People who like to work for things to become better. And that's kind of what Jesus was, right? Even whether you believe or don't believe in being a Christian, we can all agree that this fellow that we've heard about in the Bible called Jesus was somebody who changed the world and came to like people and love people. So no matter what you feel or think about it, that's where we are today. So I appreciate y'all being here and supporting us this morning. And this is not a closing of Pride, but this is a sending forth. So we will send ourselves forth in a moment. So for those of you who don't know, I'm DC Sills. I deem myself the not so rev, and I definitely ain't right. So, so it's my honor and privilege to be up here in front of y'all. And we don't have a podium this morning, so I apologize to the people coming after me. But this past year, there was a movie that came out, and it really intrigued me. And judging from the weekend, I think it connected with a lot of other people too. And that movie was The Greatest Showman. And we heard its music Friday night at the prom with the youth, which was great. We heard some of our lovely drag queens sing it yesterday as we watched the drag show. And we're going to continue on with it a bit this morning. The thing that captivated me most about that movie was P.T. Barnum himself. He was a guy who seemingly was normal. He was white. He was straight. He had a wife and some kids. Mundane job until he got fired. And then he had a dream, and he figured out what he wanted to do. And he went and found a bunch of people who other folks thought were not worthy, were not anybody who should be in the light, nobody who should be seen. And he gave them a light, he gave them a stage to shine from. And you know, like I just said a while ago, that reminds me of Jesus. And yeah, I am a Christian, or as I think Lyndon said earlier, what used to be called a Christian, but is now called a follower of Christ, which sounds much better than the C word. And that'll be the C word we use today, not the one that Donald Trump used any other time. So our C word today is Christian. But I do believe in what Gandhi said about, I like your Christ, but I don't like your Christianity. Because your Christians are not at all like your Christ. But the people in this room, the people that I'm looking at, the people that I saw yesterday and on Friday night, are very much like Christ. They're people who are open for all and love everyone. And I know that lots of us in this room have been hurt by the C word. We have been made to feel unwanted. We've been made to feel unloved. Like we weren't worthy to be sitting in the seats with other people who call themselves the C word. And some of us have found our peace with that. And some of us have become indifferent. Some of us are angry. Some of us are not even here because we're so hurt and so angry. But at the same time, that's not who Jesus was and what Jesus was about. And some of us, if you're me, I feel all of those things. Indifferent, angry. I find my peace some days. But most days I'm angry. I was angry this morning at worship at my regular church. Because the drummer in my band said, hey, I told my pops this morning, because he asked me, how's this thing work that DC leads worship, but she's gay? How does that work? And he said, well, Pops, it doesn't matter what goes on in her bedroom. What matters is what goes on in her heart. And I said, well, no, it really does matter what goes on in my bedroom. It doesn't matter to you what I do in my bedroom, because it's really nobody's business. I don't want to know what goes on in anybody in here's bedroom. But it does matter. It matters that I stand up in front of people every Sunday in a denomination that may never ordain me as a pastor. But it matters that I stand up in front of those people every Sunday and they know who I am and they know who I'm married to. That matters. It matters that we were here all weekend across the street in City Hall. It matters that we had rainbow balloons flying outside. It matters. We matter. We're worthy. And at one time people said, I'm no stranger to the dark. Hide away, they say. No one will love you as you are. But we are loved. We're those people. We are loved. And we stand up now and sing the rest of that song about a beat of a drum, that we walk to our own beat and our own drum. And it doesn't matter what people say we are, because this is us. This is us sitting in this room. This was us yesterday. And we are here. And people see us because we have the opportunity to shine. All weekend, we showed the world, well, Central Louisiana, but maybe the world, that this is us. This is who we are. This is who Cenla is. Because everybody that came yesterday was not gay. Yes, we were all queer, but we were not all gay. There were straight people. There were probably people who don't know what they are. And as I suggested to people that yesterday when I said cisgendered, and I had to explain that from the stage, and then I told people, but don't worry, ask me any question you want, because I'll either know the answer or I'll make it up. Because I'm in seminary, and in seminary they teach us to tell people stuff that makes them believe that we're right and you're wrong, correct? But that's really not true. And the people that are coming up here today are people who also believe that. They believe there's room for questions. They believe there's room for love. And that what we say is not the gospel. Because we didn't write the gospel. We're still trying to figure out the gospel every day and trying to live our lives according to what our personal gospels. And that's not something that's written in a book. It's not something that King James has a version of and there's 20 million other versions of. That's our personal lives. And that's how we live our lives. So I'm going to randomly pick faces and call some folks up to come up here and speak to you. And everybody that's coming up is either part of a group in town, or a church in town, or an organization in town, in Alexandria or Pineville, that believes all the same things. And their doors are open, their hearts are open, and their minds are open. So you sit back and enjoy and listen and really open your mind and your heart to these folks. And we're going to start out with Mr. David Britt. Oh, look, I'm sorry. Judy had said she wanted to go.
No.
Okay, well, never mind. Come on, David.
Please, Judy, go. No, I didn't say that.
Rabbi Judy Ginsburg, everybody. Welcome, everyone.
This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. I know right there, I'm not in the synagogue.
Singing like that, thank you so much. Or most churches, any church, actually.
We do all have a little light shining inside of us. It's the spark of the divine within us. We are all channels for Almighty God. Divinity exists within all creatures, within all of God's creations. God seeks to come into the world through us. Each of us, all of us, are channels of the Most High. In Judaism, lighting candles is very significant. We light candles each Sabbath, we light candles on holidays, and we light candles to memorialize the passing of loved ones. There's something about a candle that is very spiritual. When something spiritual is shared, it grows. When something physical is shared, it is diminished. For instance, when we spend money, we have less money. If we use our car to drive, we have less gas. But when we share love, compassion, knowledge, or light. We grow, we intensify, we spread our light. When we use one candle to light another, the original candle remains bright. In fact, for one glimmering moment, it actually appears to increase in brightness. Nothing is lost. The first candle's light is not lessened by being shared. Instead, the two candles together enhance each other's brightness and increase the amount of total light. By shining our own personal light and increasing our knowledge and our good deeds, we share our light with those around us, helping to dispel the darkness in our world. We must keep our light shining. We have an endless supply of light within our souls. We must share our light with our wounded world. Darkness can be dispelled with wisdom. Uncertainty can be illuminated with truth. Oh God, bless us, your creations. You call us forth to live our lives fully and to share our lights in the universe. May we stand together in peace, harmony, and love. May we always allow our individual lights to shine. And may we collectively strengthen one another with our bright, shining lights. Amen.
Amen.
Thank you, Judy. So Judy Rabbi Ginsburg is here local in Alexandria, but she serves a church, or a synagogue rather, in Monroe. So we're happy to have her here today. And so we'll go back to David Britt now. And I'm gonna let David tell you where he's from because I always mix it up.
Yeah, I've been here about 21 years now. Grew up in Baton Rouge, the LSU, and went to a Baptist seminary up in Louisville, Kentucky. And actually, believe it or not, it was a fairly liberal Baptist seminary. I know that sounds like an oxymoron to a lot of people. But I really enjoyed it, learned a lot of good stuff. But along the way, Baptists went to a place where I didn't want to follow. So for the last 8 years, I've been, well, I should say first, my day job is I run the United Way here in central Louisiana. And some of y'all may have known me through that. But for the last 8 years, I've been pastor of a small Disciples of Christ congregation on Highway 28 East in Pineville. The Disciples of Christ is a denomination I didn't really know much about until they asked me to come kind of fill in the pulpit there. I've really enjoyed it. It's a denomination. If I will stand up and let people see the back of your shirt there. It's a movement for wholeness in a fragmented world. You may have heard of, and now of course I'm blanking on the gentleman. Thank you. Reverend William Barber is a Disciples of Christ minister leading the Poor People's Campaign. You can go to disciples.org and find out more. But I guess what I wanted to say, I asked DC, I don't know what I have to say that's of particular interest to you all, but I think our little congregation, we have 20 if everybody shows up, so it's not a large group. And of course, there's an advantage to that. There's some things we can't do because we're so small, but it's a very intimate, loving congregation. Karen and David are members. Like I say, we have about 20. Several years ago, I had a message on our church phone from a lady who said she and her partner had been made to feel unwelcome in their home church, and even by many of their family members. And they happen to be African American as well. And would they be welcome in our church? So I called her back and said, I'm fairly new here myself, but come on. And sure enough, our congregation welcomed them and with open arms. And they said they've not felt welcome like this anywhere. So I felt better about being there, and they feel good about being there. And then sometime later, my friend for several years, David Carson, called me up and said, this was after the law had been changed, said, would you perform our wedding? And he and his partner Harry. And I said, sure, I'd be glad to. So we did the wedding out at Longleaf, and it was a lovely event. And did a ceremony before the law was changed for the first couple I mentioned. It just didn't have legal import at that time. I think our congregation, the main focus we tend to hit is what is healthy spirituality. I think regardless of what your organized religion may or may not be, all of us need a healthy spirituality. And that's kind of our focus. What does that mean? I wasn't even sure for a while there, after my experience with Baptists, if that was even possible in a Christian context. And I think what I'm finding is, yeah, it is. You have to kind of work at it. You have to kind of get behind what's socially accepted and expected. Our scripture this morning was about Jesus, who asked the question of people who were overly concerned about social correctness. Is it better to do harm or to do good on the Sabbath? And I think the obvious answer is, most of the answers to Jesus' questions were fairly obvious once you thought about it. It's better to do good on the Sabbath. And when people call up and know that they're accepted and loved, not just tolerated, but loved from the first day, yeah, that's healthy spirituality, regardless whether you're straight, gay, whatever. That's what we do together. And you're all welcome to join us some Sunday. We have Bible study for everybody at 9:45, and our worship service starts at 10:45. Viola does a Montessori sort of thing for children. Like I said, we're such a small congregation, we don't have all that many children, but we do have some. That's kind of who we are. And if you haven't heard of the Disciples of Christ, there are not many of us. About half of our congregations are African American, half are predominantly white, and many of us are mixed. So it's something I felt good about. And I don't know what else we might want to say, but that's, without taking too much time, that's what I wanted to tell you about it's called First Christian Church Disciples of Christ. And that's who we are, DC.
And what a great example. What a great example of quality over quantity. It doesn't matter whether if it's a mega church or you're a church of 5 people. If you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and walking the steps you're supposed to be walking, or even if it's a group that's not a church group, if you're doing what you're supposed to be doing and what you're called to do, it can be 2 of you, it can be 1 of you, it can be 1,000 of you. It's all the same. There's power in that unity. And with that said, I'm going to bring up Mr. Matthew Gallagher, who I'm happy to say is my neighbor down the block. But also, he's with the Free Thinkers. And if I hadn't been raised Catholic and that wasn't so deeply rooted in me that, I would definitely be a free thinker, because I love their Facebook page. I love the stuff they talk about. Because to me, if Jesus was here today and saw all the things that our churches were doing and the C word does, Jesus would be a free thinker. So I'm just saying. So Matthew Gallagher.
Thanks, Nancy. Well, good morning, everyone. All right, let me look at my notes. All right, silly comment. DC, how's your old lady doing? All right, so for the intro, my name is Matthew Gallagher. I'm a member of the Alexandria Freethinkers. We're atheists, agnostics, really anybody who wants to come in, I dare say, belong. And we have we are a fairly diverse bunch. But so the theme, one's light shining. We've heard the rabbi led in the song, this little light of mine, and then, well, how do you let it shine? As somebody who doesn't have a faith, it's fairly easy. Because life has no instruction booklet, we kind of make it up as we go along, and there aren't that many trails already established, so we basically blaze our own trail. And so getting back to the how do I blaze a trail? How do I let my light shine? one of the things that I do, and I thought Kevin does and Michelle does, is we do our best because we're not perfect. We're fallible men. And we try to do good for other people. And we try to be the example that maybe we didn't have that kind of pulled us away from religion. Hearing nasty comments about people, about maybe their private lives or things that they do outside of the public view. So one of the things that we do is we get together, we have our movie nights, and then we participate in things. How do I let my light shine? I participate in the Pride Fest, hand out information, talk to people, have conversations. And those little things, they don't seem like they're much, but it's a little thing, and a little thing here, a little thing there, and a little thing in the other place. And they build up. And then after a while of just small pebbles, you can build something like that. And so the other thing is being the non-believer is asking questions of people. How do I know what I do? How do I know what I don't know? So one of the things that I do, and Kevin will attest to it, that I'll ask him questions about things. He's obviously more stylish than I am, has a different taste in music than I do, so I just ask him questions. Hey, what does this mean? What did you think of Grandmaster Flash? Okay, what did you think about this album? We start to get real into the finer details of it. And we kind of learn that we just exchange questions and answer them to the best of our abilities. And then as we get to know each other, kind of poke fun at each other. And that's a good thing. It's not mean-spirited, it's often playful jabs. And it's my kind of sense of humor. If I didn't make fun of somebody, I didn't like them, or I wouldn't like them. And with that curiosity comes, you get knowledge about it. And curiosity will conquer more than bravery. Because if I don't know anything about Judaism, I'll find somebody that knows more about Judaism than I do. So, as it happens, I don't live that far from the temple on Turner Street. Best place to go, ring the bell, and ask for the rabbi. And then pepper the rabbi with questions, and get all the answers you can get. And then come up with more questions, and then have that conversation. Because it's not rocket science. I'm just talking to another person who knows something about that I do, knows more about something than I do. Sorry, a little bit nervous. And even though we don't have, say, a church, we'll meet at somebody's house and we'll do the church things. We'll gather, we'll have a meal, or we'll share a snack, we'll watch a movie, we'll talk about it. It's all very simple stuff. We're not reinventing the wheel or inventing fire. We're doing what people normally do. And all right, so another thing is the good neighbor. How do you be a good neighbor? Anybody have all right, so Rabbi, I was poking fun at you last. How do you, as the upstanding person you are, how are you a good neighbor?
Well, we actually have new neighbors that are moving in next door to us. So I've already made some food for them, and it's in my freezer, because I know they're moving in 2 weeks. And I'm gonna bring that food by to them, so that they don't have to worry about that while they're moving all their stuff in.
GC, since you're one of the ladies of the hour, how are you a good neighbor?
Well, I'm going to tell how Kevin, I'm looking at Kevin. I'm going to tell how Matthew's a good neighbor, because when I moved into the neighborhood, he was actually the only person who showed up at our door, knocked on the door, and gave us a bottle of wine. And then came over later to visit, see how we settled in, and that was great. Ever since, we may not see each other every day, but we definitely have a connection because you made that effort. So.
And one of my neighbors, actually a few of my neighbors from the hood, as it were, are in the audience. Catherine, who's a lawyer, and I know there are lawyer jokes that there's 99% make the 1% look bad. But
Same with the C word.
it's something that we have to take in our stride, that there's good and there's bad. So how do I be a good neighbor? I'll see my neighbor Catherine, and I'll ask her, hey, how's your old lady doing? Because if it were me and I were
I
married,
thought that was just our thing.
no, I have to share. And it's just something that it's so simple that if it were me, and now we're going to get to the golden rule, do unto others as you would have them do unto you. And I think it'd be really nice if I were married to have one of my neighbors ask me, how's your old lady doing? Or how's your husband?
We ask about Blue every time we see you.
And my dog. So something that simple that I don't need a divine mandate to do it. I do it because that's my neighbor. I like being around them. It's all, when people want to get wrapped around the axle about large things, sometimes you don't have to. Just go with the simple things. And start with the simple and then work your way up to the big. And so the thing I noticed that with trailblazers, they're starting a new trail that nobody else has walked. And it's going to seem that, well, I'm going into the wilderness, I'm the only one who's walked this. It's going to get difficult because nobody's been here and nobody may ever know that I'm walking this trail. But to get anywhere in life, you gotta do it. If you want to strike out and be something, be somebody, you got to walk that trail, and you got to take the chance of, well, am I lost? Am I going in the right direction? But because there is not a lot of time on this earth, and then we'll go back to being star stuff. So we walk our trails, we make our friends, and then just be a good neighbor. And take some time to do the small things. Shake a hand, smell the flowers. Make jokes, make comments.
Excellent.
And thank you for your attention.
See, I'm telling you, abolish we should all be free thinkers. I think we are all free thinkers in this room, pretty much. Next up is a gentleman who, this is going to sound like a concert announcement, but this gentleman blew us away at the first Pride ecumenical service. Had lots of us in tears, and since then has blazed his own new trail and is pushing forward. And I'm very proud to call him friend, even though he's very reclusive. So he is kind of like a pop star. And that's Mr. Michael Parr.
I just want to start by saying how thankful I am this year not to have to follow Pastor Sherry Jackson. If you haven't heard her speak, hold on, she's coming. She's coming. It's
No pressure, no pressure.
No pressure. Let's see. No, I'm good. I'm a multitasker. Eat, read, drive. Yeah, I do it all.
What do you drive, just so we can avoid you?
Just a little SUV. Okay. I am a postulant for holy orders in the Episcopal Diocese of Western Louisiana. That's Episcopal speak for I'm on my way to being ordained, but I am not yet, so I'm not a reverend. When DC asked me to speak this year, I wondered what I could say about shine. So I looked it up to see what shine meant, what the definition of shine is, and the dictionary told me that it was a quality of brightness, especially from reflected light. And that reminded me of one of my favorite quotes from Edith Wharton, who said that there are two ways of spreading light, to be the candle or the mirror that reflects it. I was born 52 years ago and raised in a mobile home in LaSalle Parish. The town that we lived in was called Tullis. Some of you may have heard of it. It's a speed trap on 165. I think that's the only thing that's still left there is the cop. Everybody else is left. I knew from an early age that I was different. Perhaps a bit feminine. Okay, I was a queen. But in those days, being homosexual wasn't celebrated and revered quite like it is today. Especially when your grandfather is a Southern Baptist minister and he preaches hellfire and damnation for people like me. Therefore, I grew up filled with shame, and I prayed on a regular basis for God to make me normal However, as those of you who know me are aware, God said, girl, no. So I staggered through life doing the best that a queen can until at the age of 34, I found myself addicted to IV drugs and alcohol. I got arrested. I got fired. I lost the best dysfunctional relationship I have ever had. And I became homeless. I had nowhere to go for a period of time. This period of my life was so dark that there often seemed to be no reason to go on living. However, as John chapter 1 verse 5 tells us, the light shines in the darkness, and the darkness did not overcome it. Other people seemed to see a light, a reason to throw me a lifeline. They had me committed against my will to drug detox, and then I went on to inpatient treatment. From that point forward, God seemed to begin to put people in my life to either show me the way or teach me a lesson. I have met people, candles in this community, like D.C. Sills, Bishop Jacob Owensby, Reverend Lyndon Marcotte, Rabbi Judy Ginsburg. People who have taught me that there's more than one faith tradition, but the basic tenet that they all have in common is love. I think that even if someone doesn't believe in God, we can all agree that love is universal. There is room for us all. So I had this urge for a connection, some sort of spirituality. So, being a technology queen, I researched various churches in this area, and not one of those churches said that LGBT people were welcome in their church. A few even suggested books that I could read to help cure me of my homosexuality. And one even had their very own prayer and support group for people like me. But I knew that I did not need to be cured because I was not sick. Well, at least not in that context, you know. So this guy that I knew told me about the Episcopal church that he attended, and he said that the priest and people there would welcome me, and he invited me to go with him. I went, and I found a spiritual connection to a power greater than myself. I learned that by being a mirror to reflect the light, I could become part of something larger than myself. I believe that in community, we can all create a gleaming reflection of light that illuminates the darkness for those coming behind us. I see that happening in our community. One example that comes to my mind is UBU Cenla. This is a group of fantastic young adults that have formed a community. They perform random acts of kindness, eat pizza, and have a presence at festivals and events. These young people are shining a light for those in the community that maybe still haven't quite found a place to fit in. This year, while they were rained out for the Mardi Gras parade, I think they have made their mark by hosting the very first LGBT youth prom in Central Louisiana. To be honest, they make me feel a bit jealous because I wish that I had found a group like them when I was 16. I also see our community working towards feeding the hungry, housing the homeless, caring for the sick and the lonely. We welcome the stranger, we celebrate the different, and we share the goodness and the sorrows of life. But there is much work to be done. Transgender Americans are facing an epidemic of violence. 27 transgender people, mostly women of color, were murdered in the United States in 2017, tying it with 2016 as the deadliest year on record. Of course, the number of victims in any given year is likely much higher, given that some are misgendered by the police or the media, and some homicides are not reported at all. As of May 2018, 11 homicides of transgender Americans have been reported. And my friends, the HIV virus is alive and well. And since I may not get the chance to meet with each of you in an exam room at class, fasten your seatbelts. If you or someone that you love has multiple sex partners, exchanges sex for money, don't act like I'm the only one. You exchange sex for money or drugs, If you had a sexually transmitted infection such as syphilis, gonorrhea, or chlamydia, if you have sex while drunk or high, if you use crystal methamphetamine, if you have anonymous sex at locations such as adult video stores, free video, if you participate in group sex scenes, these are some indicators of a high risk for acquiring the HIV virus. But the news is not all bad, because the light shines in the darkness. There is a program called pre-exposure prophylaxis that uses a drug called Truvada that can prevent HIV-negative people from contracting the virus, and PrEP is available right here in Alexandria at class. People who are HIV positive but are taking their prescribed meds and have reached an undetectable viral load cannot transmit the virus. Undetectable equals untransmittable. U equals you. Say it with me. U equals you. The research gives us pause. It gives us a reason to start erasing the stigma that keeps people from wanting to meet people who are HIV positive, so that we are shunning them and treating them the way we were all treated when people found out that we were gay back in the day. I want you to share this information and shine the light. Tell your friends and family members, people at your church, that there is help available to prevent the transmission of the HIV virus. We are responsible for each other, and if we do not take care of our community, no one else will. So I ask you today, are you a candle or a mirror?
Amen.
Candle, mirror, mirror, candle. Now we're going to reverse it from last year, and we're going to make the Reverend Sherry Jackson follow Michael Palmer. And I don't know if the pastors in this room realize it, but in my head, I call us like the renegade rebel pastors. Even though Michael and I aren't pastors yet, in some ways we always probably have been. Because we are, everyone in this room are all the queer pastors in town. No matter who you sleep with or what happens in your bedroom. To me, you answered the call when I said, who can come today? Y'all all responded back to me like that. My own pastor tells me after the deadline, oh, I'm not going to be able to make it. I said, good, because you missed the deadline. So, but just to let you know, and not to speak bad about anyone because people are busy, but y'all responded to me so fast and so quick, it truly spoke to my heart. So, and this lady speaks to my heart every time she opens her mouth. So here we go, Reverend Sherry Jackson.
Well, praise the Lord, everybody.
And she don't even need a microphone.
Well, I am Pastor Sherry of the Healing Place Ministries of Alexandria. It is a place to belong before you believe. In other words, you don't have to have it all together. We are a community of believers. We even have something after the sermon called Talk Back to the Preacher. That means that if you don't like something that I've said or whoever stands before you and you say, look, I can take this, but over here I'm not ready to take that, we can talk about it. So it's called Talk Back to the Preacher. It is a place to belong before you believe. You don't have to have it all together. You don't even have to care about it. But I know that there is value in community. Amen? There is value in community. So we are located at 1429 3rd Street. So you know where the tree house is? There is this building. We don't have a sign yet because we're going to get one in the coming weeks. But our Healing Place Ministry, but it's right on the side of the tree house, okay? And so you can just stop in 9 o'clock, but what I've discovered is people don't like to be in church all day. And so it is just 1 hour. And if we are there like to about 10:15, y'all come check on us. The Holy Ghost has done something. Amen? Amen. So it is my pleasure to be here again. I tell you how much I here, so if my speech is a little slurry, I didn't even have sleep, but I am here today. And so we're talking about step into the light. Well, first of all, I'm a little jealous of Reverend David Brick because he's got a mega church. We got about 12. Hey, but that's okay because we discovered that numbers do not mean impact. Numbers do not mean impact. So, step into the light. So, first of all, I am Baptist, that's sneaking around disciples of Christ, that went to a United Methodist seminary, so I'm kind of like all over the place. So, in Genesis 50, we've heard the story, perhaps, of Joseph, right? Joseph, the man of many colors, many colors. Joseph had been wronged by some people who were very close to him. His own people, his brothers, had wronged him. They were jealous because the dad had taken a liking to Joseph a little bit more, and Joseph was a young boy, so he threw it into his brothers' faces. And so the brothers decided, we know what we will do with you. We will get rid of you. We are going to put you in a pit. In fact, we really want to kill you. But a long story short, he ended up coming out of that pit and being placed into the king's house. All right? Long story short, his brothers and his family got into some trouble. They were in a famine. In other words, it came a time when they needed Joseph. So when we get to Genesis 50, around 18, 19, and 20 in there, it talks about the brothers had to come back to Joseph. Have you ever been in a place where you had to go back to someone who you had wronged, or perhaps they came to you and you had every right to take revenge? But Joseph did not take revenge. He simply said, what you meant for evil, God meant for good. Now, Joseph had to do some stuff before he stepped into the spotlight. The first thing he had to do, and I want to suggest, if we're going to be everything that God called us to be, if we're going to let our light shine, perhaps we may need to bury some people. First thing Joseph had to do was bury his dad. Perhaps there is someone who has called you to be on the sidelines. You may have to bury somebody. I don't necessarily mean physical, but perhaps emotionally, mentally, you've got to take care of that before you can step into the spotlight. Got to bury some stuff. Many of us are on the sidelines because we are still holding on to the people who harmed us. We may have to bury some stuff and then bury grudges. Now, I'm not just talking to you. I'm really talking about my own self. I have to bury my past. I have to bury grudges. So when those brothers went back to him and they were really in need, he could have said, I don't care about you being hungry because you remember when? But he didn't do that. He simply said, what you meant for evil, God flipped the script and turned it out for my good. And then after your own conscience is clear, not based upon somebody else, because God has given each one of us a light. And we can be on the sidelines, but somebody needs our light. Somebody is waiting for us to shine that light. And we have to step into the light. And when we have buried our past, when we have buried our grudges, then we could boldly say, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Everywhere I go, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. Woo!
Now, I'm not really sure why Michael didn't want to follow that. I don't get it. But the person I am going to make follow that is probably the one person in this room who can counterbalance it a little bit. Because he's all about the balance, and he's all about the movement. Reverend Lyndon Marcotte.
Wow, I was really hoping to go before Sherry. I thought I was going to lead y'all on a nice calm meditation just to, let her finish things off, but that's just shot. So thank you very much. I appreciate each and every one of you for being here today and showing your support for being human. Thank you very much for being here. No one else mentioned it, so I'll go there. If you were in a Catholic church, Methodist church, any of the churches that participate in the liturgical readings, the reading from the New Testament this morning was from the Apostle Paul in 2 Corinthians, and he said basically the same God who said, let there be light, put that light in us. The same light that shines in the universe is somehow shining in us. And whether you're a person of faith or a person of science, a person of curiosity, I think that resonates with all of us. That something is happening in us that started a long, long time ago. It's what unites us. It's where we all come from. And this reminder that he said we have this treasure in earthen vessels was a throwback to remind us of the story that from the dust of the earth we were formed. And that is not to put us down, but to keep us humble, to remind us that we all come from the same stuff. I throw a little bit of Buddha in there because I'm weird like that. I'm a backslidden Baptist Buddhist. But Buddha said that everyone's tears are salty and everyone's blood runs red. And I think that's the same thing that we hear in Genesis, that we are formed of the dust of the earth, that we have this treasure in an earthen vessel. I had a college professor in college years ago who was nuts. And when he talked about this idea, some of those translations call it jars of clay. He said we're all cracked pots. I think that fits in very well with DC's helpful description that we're all queer today, that we're all cracked pots, that we are earthen vessels, but we are not this beautiful, magnificent ceramic work of art that you will find down the street at River Oaks or over at the museum. We are not finished products. We are so very much flawed. We are the product of our rearing, of our life experience, good or for bad, our faith traditions or no traditions, our communities, our friendships. It's what makes us who we are. And some of the stuff that got into the clay was junk. Some of the stuff that got into the clay was grit. Some of the stuff that got into the clay was hard. And we've all had hardships. We all have wounded places in us. And the problem is a lot of times we spend most of our life trying to hide the fact that there's cracks in us. We put on a lot of duct tape, we put on a lot of super glue, we put on a lot of makeup. We do whatever we got to do to hide the fact that we're cracked. We want to make sure that everybody thinks we've got it all together, and we never make mistakes, and we never have a hard day. And I was so relieved that DC told us earlier that she got mad at church this morning. I thought I was the only one. I told Sherry I don't even know why I went this morning. It was all late. It happens. It happens. And we don't have to pretend that we've got it all together. In fact, he says that it's in our woundedness that we find our strength. And when we decide to stop hiding and we decide to show the fact that we're cracked, that we are broken, that we have hurts, we have pain, that we find out that we're all more alike than different. That that other people can resonate with what we're going through. Carl Jung said the best method for helping other people with their own darkness is to know our own. And it takes some hard work to look ourselves in the mirror and say, you know what, there's some stuff in me that's hard, some stuff that I'm not ready to deal with, some stuff that's just tough. And when we get to that place in us, we find out that other people have that place in them. But there is light in this vessel, in this broken, cracked vessel. There's something good, something really good. And I think that we've seen a little bit of that here today. We've seen a lot of that this weekend. We see that in our community all the time. At the same time, there's a lot of darkness in the world, and it hurts, and it's a heartache. And if you didn't feel that heartache, I don't think you'd be in this room today. But at the same time that it's also broken, and somehow it seems like it's never going to get any better, there's some really good things happening at the same time. That it's all falling apart, and it's all being made new all at the same time. And if we quit, and if we give up, then it gets a little darker. So I just want to encourage you today, keep shining your light, keep being you, whatever you is, and know that we need you. We need your light, we need your voice, we need your life experience. We need you to show us where you're hurt, because chances are we're feeling it too. So thank you very much for being here today. Thank you for giving me a moment of your time.
Thank you. So probably the brightest light in this room is standing in the back of the room, and we haven't heard her voice all weekend, unless you had a personal conversation with her, which was hard to do, by the way, because she was so busy all weekend. And so we're going to bring Ann on up, and we're going to give her a round of applause as she comes up. Because I don't know if any of us would be connected if it wasn't for this lady.
I'm so lucky.
You are lucky. And so we're going to give you the microphone for a few minutes.
Well, that's good because I have no idea what I'm going to say.
Well, you know, neither do the rest of us.
All right? Okay, so, this is an ecumenical service, right? Or non-service or whatever. And so what I've discovered over the years is that people really like to label things, right? One of the first things people want to know about you is, what do you do for a living? What's your label? What label do you wear at work? They want to ask you, what church do you go to? They want to know, are you Catholic or are you Baptist? What can I expect from your behavior? And so, at various times in my life, I've kind of tried to figure this out. I was reared Catholic. My dad was my teacher. I would go. Then I started having really big problems with the way that I felt like women were treated in the Catholic Church, and I know all that Virgin Mary stuff they try to sell us at that, and I just really kind of fell away from that whole idea. And then I started seeing somebody who was an affirmed atheist, and I thought, well, maybe I'm an atheist, and then that kind of scared me a little bit. And I decided, that that maybe what I really was an optimistic agnostic. And then I would have conversations with Tracy McKenzie, who used to be at the Horseshoe Drive Methodist Church, and I miss her so much and still talk to her. And she would say, from what I'd really like to talk to you some time about coming to the church and all that. And I would say, I've really figured this out. Kind of like Abe Lincoln said, kindness is my religion. Kindness is my religion. And then Tracy said, I know a guy named Jesus, and kindness was his religion too. So maybe the label I wear with regard to my faith is confused. I'm really not sure exactly what I am or what I believe, but one label that I share with all of you, and one that I try to live my life believing and promoting and upholding and pushing boundaries for in our community, is the label that we are all equally human.
Amen.
Equally human, and I'm just determined. I live my life every day pushing those boundaries and believing and trying to find those people who believe like I do, right? And I think DC and I, talked a little bit about some of the media surrounding gay prom, or oh my God, gay prom, and she was kind of afraid to read the comments, and I said, I'm gonna go look at the comments. I'm gonna go look at the comments, and they were just silly. And I said, we're never gonna change anybody's mind. There's no reason to debate them about it. The thing that we can just do is continue to find people who believe like we do, and gather them all together,
and do good work in our community. And then, right, sell the whole idea. There is a gay agenda, right? We're equally human, everybody in this room, whether we're gay or queer, as I've learned I am today.
There you go.
Or the gayest straight girl you've ever met. I'm not sure. But anyway.
Or the straightest gay girl with her.
Right. Straightest gay girl, whatever the label is. Equally human. And so I'm really so proud of Pride, of class, of the people that I work with, of the people who volunteer for us, of the people who just give and give and give this community. I'm so surrounded by all those kinds of people, and it's just really been a pleasure. And so I want to thank you all for a fantastic weekend, and we'll get ready for next year. Now, not much on scripture, but I do, maybe if I can pull it up fast enough, and I hope that I can, and some people in this room will know my affection for this song, this music, by Warren Haynes and Greg Allman. Oh, shit. I mean, shoot. Fortunately, the child in the room is my grandson, so
And also
four. And so the song is called Soul Shine. When you can't find the light that got you through the cloudy days, when the stars ain't shining bright and you feel like you've lost your way, when the candlelight of home burns so very far away, well, you gotta let your soul shine. Just like my daddy used to say. He used to say, soul shine, it's better than sunshine. Sunshine, sunshine. It's better than moonshine, and it's damn sure better than the rain. You know, people don't mind. We all feel this way sometimes. You gotta let your soul shine. Shine till the break of day. So, let your soul shine, whether it be your light, your mirror, your candle, your soul, your non-soul, your stardust material, whatever it is that you got. Let your soul shine, and then one day everyone will believe as we do that we are all equally human and deserving of love and acceptance. Thank you.
And then the real question is, how do you follow that? You know, oh, and I got nothing prepared. And I really wasn't going to do anything. Well, I was going to do something with closing because, see, apparently I prepared something for the closing. But we started out talking about The Greatest Showman, and so I'm going to close it the same way and talk about P.T. Barnum, and yes, I'm going to bring up the J word again, Jesus. Because Ann and I say this past quarter for school, or past year, I've done an internship, and Ann was my supervisor. And I should do air quotes, but because she was the best supervisor ever, just let me say that. And that's in all honesty, people. She was the best supervisor ever. We would often say when we were on conference calls with the school, because people would be talking about Jesus this, Jesus that, we'd be like, what Jesus are they talking about? You know, is it the one that we know or the one other people know? That the people with the capital C know? Because we laugh and say, my Jesus is the Jesus that saw the light in people that other people didn't see. My Jesus is the Jesus that walked up to this woman at a well who was there in the middle of the day. And back then, you didn't go to the well in the middle of the day. You went in the afternoon. If you were at the well in the middle of the day, it means something was wrong with you. Because nobody wanted you. Ho, 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 yes, sir, sir. Because somebody didn't want you at the well with them later. But Jesus talked to that woman. We don't even know her name, but what we do know is he sent her off and she became the first preacher. Because she went out and told the world about this fellow she met and converted a lot of people. That's the Jesus that I know. And the other Jesus, and the same Jesus I know, he hung out with 12 fellas, okay? And those fellas argued a whole heck of a lot about who Jesus loved the most. I don't know about y'all, but for you straight gentlemen in the room, how many of y'all sit around and argue about who your friends love the most? Okay? Don't you raise your hand. We'll talk later. Because you really may be queer. And then let's talk about Jesus' best friend. This woman named Mary Magdalene, right? What did they say she was? right? A lady of the evening.
She was a very giving soul.
True, she did. She gave, she put out, so to speak.
She did.
But I don't know that she really was. I'm thinking she was probably a big old dyke like me, or she was a big old drag queen,
Yeah.
right? Look at her description. Go back and read it. See how they describe Mary Magdalene. See if you look at it different. But that's the Jesus that I know. That's the Jesus that I know, that finds the shine in the people, that doesn't leave people in the dark. And the Jesus that I know is the one that Matthew talks about in 5:14, when he says, "You are the light of the world, a city on top of the hill that can't be hidden. Neither do people light a lamp and put it under a basket. Instead, they put it on top of a lampstand, and it shines on all who are in the house. In the same way, let your light shine before the people, so they can see the good things that you do and praise your parent in heaven." So throughout the weekend, we all have a million dreams, and we all think about things that we want. And I think starting Pride 5 years ago made a lot of dreams come true in this town and for a lot of people. And then the first gay prom this year, whether those kids knew it, I hope they really didn't care that they were making history. I think we adults thought it was great that they made history, but they just had a great time. And those are little dreams and little things that we've done because Ann said, "Hey, you know what, let's start a youth group." Okay. Or David and I were talking about, hey, shouldn't there be a church where everybody's welcome? Shouldn't we all get together and make that happen? Make things like this happen more often? Sure, let's try to do that. So as we try to make our dreams come true, I was going to end with this little light of mine, but I think we've sung it maybe once today. All the mercy.
Sung in different ways.
That's true. Well, we did it this morning in worship, and it kind of got me over my madness. And if I can get the melody right to the first part of the song, it'll be okay. 'Cause every night I lie in bed, a million colors fill my head, a million dreams are keeping me awake. Dreams of how the world should be, the beauty of the things I see, a million dreams are what it's gonna take. A million dreams for the world we're gonna make. And I don't care if they call us crazy. And I don't care if we've lost our minds. And I don't care if they call us crazy. 'Cause we're building up a world that we design. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Oh, this little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. This little light of mine, I'm gonna let it shine. Let it shine, let it shine, let it shine. So as we leave here today, make sure your light stays on, whether you're a candle or whether you're a mirror. As you're blazing new trails, as you realize you're a cracked pot, as you're burying stuff in your backyard, as you're looking for that place that says yes when you ask a question, and when you're trying to find ways to make your light shine, make sure everyone that sees you sees the glow that we've seen all weekend. So I wish I had it on my phone and my phone set up, because the best way to end the service would be to say, "Go on now, go! Walk out the door!"
Don't turn around.
Because you're welcome all the more. But we're going to end it this way. We're going to say, in this room right now, in Queer Church, or as I like to call it, worship everywhere and for everyone, we're going to say, slay men. So all of God's people say, slay men!